been a lot of discussion about whether Independence Day 3 will ever become a reality, especially after director Roland Emmerich recently spoke about the franchise again. His comments have made it clear that bringing back Will Smith would be difficult because his character, Captain Stephen Hiller, was killed off in Independence Day Resurgence. Even though that sounds like a major obstacle, it doesn't automatically mean a third movie can't happen. In fact, the future of the franchise now depends much more on finding a fresh direction than trying to recreate the past. The biggest question isn't whether Hiller can return, but whether the series still has enough story left to justify another large-scale alien invasion adventure. When the original Independence Day arrived in 1996, it quickly became one of the defining blockbuster movies of its era because it combined science fiction, disaster spectacle, and memorable characters into one massive event. It featured Will Smith as Captain Stephen Hiller alongside Jeff Goldblum's David Levinson and Bill Pullman's President Thomas Whitmore. The movie delivered unforgettable action scenes, emotional victories, and visual effects that were groundbreaking for their time. One of the biggest reasons audiences still remember it today is because it balanced huge destruction with characters people actually wanted to root for. The original film also arrived at the perfect time. Will Smith was becoming one of Hollywood's biggest stars, and the movie helped push him even further into blockbuster territory. His chemistry with the rest of the cast gave the story plenty of energy, and the worldwide battle against the alien invasion felt exciting from beginning to end. Because everything came together so well, the movie earned enormous success, both critically and financially, becoming one of the biggest hits of the 1990s. Naturally, that success created interest in continuing the story. Fans waited years to see another chapter because the world that the first movie introduced still had plenty of potential. Humanity had defeated one invasion, but the ending also suggested that other alien threats could still exist somewhere in space. That left the door open for future stories, even though it ultimately took 2 decades before another installment was released. When Independence Day Resurgence finally arrived in 2016, expectations were extremely high because audiences hoped it would capture the same excitement as the original. Roland Emmerich returned to direct, and Jeff Goldblum came back as David Levinson. The sequel expanded the universe by showing how Earth had rebuilt itself using captured alien technology over the previous 20 years. On paper, that sounded like an interesting direction because humanity had learned from its first encounter and was far more prepared for another invasion. But one major change happened before production even began. According to Roland Emmerich, Will Smith reportedly left the project only about 2 weeks before filming started. Because of that, the filmmakers had to completely rewrite the script in a very short amount of time. That was a huge challenge because Captain Stephen Hiller had originally been expected to play an important role in the sequel. Instead, the movie explained that Hiller had died before the events of the story, removing one of the franchise's most recognizable heroes. That decision continues to affect every conversation about Independence Day 3 because bringing back Will Smith now becomes much more complicated. During a recent interview, Emmerich pointed out that Hiller is already dead within the story. He also mentioned another important issue. The franchise is now under Disney's control, meaning the decision to continue the series no longer rests entirely with him. So even if he wanted another movie, several business factors would also have to line up before anything could move forward. Even though those challenges exist, they don't completely close the door on a third installment. Franchises have often introduced new heroes after original characters left the story. Because the Independence Day universe is built around humanity defending Earth against alien civilizations, there are still plenty of opportunities to introduce fresh military leaders, scientists, and pilots. A third movie wouldn't necessarily need Captain Hiller if it could develop another group of compelling characters. One of the biggest lessons from Resurgence is that audiences wanted more than spectacular visual effects. The sequel certainly delivered large battles, giant alien ships, and impressive destruction, but many viewers felt the emotional side of the story wasn't nearly as strong as the original. The first movie succeeded because people cared about the individuals fighting for survival. The sequel focused much more on expanding the scale, although it sometimes struggled to make viewers feel equally invested in its new characters. Critical reception reflected that difference. While the original movie earned generally positive reactions for its entertainment value and memorable action, Resurgence received much weaker reviews. Many critics believed that it repeated several ideas from the first film without adding enough fresh emotional depth. Audiences shared many of those opinions, which made it harder for the sequel to build the same lasting reputation. The box office numbers also showed a noticeable difference. The original Independence Day became a global phenomenon by earning more than $800 million worldwide. Resurgence still made hundreds of millions of dollars, which is far from a complete failure, but its worldwide total dropped significantly compared to its predecessor. Considering how expensive large-scale science fiction blockbusters are to produce, that decrease naturally raised questions about whether another sequel would be financially worthwhile. But lower box office numbers don't always end a franchise forever. Hollywood has seen several long-running series return after lengthy breaks, especially when studios believe audiences are ready for a fresh take. Sometimes all it takes is the right creative idea, a strong script, and a talented cast to generate renewed excitement. Because of that, Independence Day 3 still can't be ruled out completely, even though there has been no official progress for years. If another movie eventually happens, it would probably need to learn from both previous films. The large-scale destruction and visual spectacle remain important because that's part of what defines the franchise. But those elements alone aren't enough anymore. Modern audiences greatly expect stronger character development, emotional storytelling, and meaningful relationships alongside the action. If a third installment could balance those ingredients more effectively, it would have a much better chance of reconnecting with longtime fans. Another advantage is that the fictional universe still has room to grow. The alien civilization introduced across the first two films was presented as enormous, with technology far beyond humanity's understanding. There are still unanswered questions about their history, their remaining forces, and the wider galaxy beyond Earth. Exploring those ideas could give a third movie a much larger sense of discovery instead of simply repeating another invasion. The human side of the story could also continue evolving. Earth has already transformed dramatically after decades of studying alien technology. That creates opportunities to explore new weapons, advanced spacecraft, and global cooperation between nations. Instead of focusing only on defending the planet again, a third movie could examine humanity taking a more active role in protecting itself across the solar system or even beyond. That kind of evolution would naturally help distinguish it from the previous installments. Even though Will Smith's absence would still be felt, the franchise already proved that other returning characters can carry important parts of the story. Jeff Goldblum remains closely associated with the series, and his character's scientific expertise continues to fit naturally within the universe. A combination of familiar faces and well-developed newcomers could provide the balance needed for another chapter. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.